Welcome back to this Masterclass Explainer. I am your Master Coach, and today we are going to be looking straight through the exact lens of a Cambridge Assessment International Education Examiner. We are diving deep into Cambridge AS and A-level accounting, specifically Syllabus 9706. Now, our mission today is pretty straightforward, but absolutely crucial. We are going to completely demystify two of the most notoriously misunderstood concepts in the entire curriculum. I'm talking about matching accruals and substance over form. Listen, if you've ever found yourself staring down one of those high tariff questions, those incredibly intimidating 9 to 15 mark essay problems, and you just felt your mind go completely blank, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're not just reading textbooks. We are going to break down the cognitive strategies, the time allocation, and the critical thinking frameworks that you need to not just barely survive these papers, but to absolutely crush them. So let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, take a look at this quote. This is pulled directly from the Principal Examiner Reports. It says, examiners report that accounting concepts matching accruals and substance over form is one of the most misunderstood areas in accounting. Now, why is that a massive, high-stakes hook for us? Well, every single year, thousands of students walk into that exam hall totally convinced they have memorized their textbook definitions perfectly, only to fall straight into the traps set by these specific topics. And why does that happen? Because Cambridge isn't just testing your ability to recite facts. They're testing your ability to apply logical, structured reasoning to completely unfamiliar contexts. Without the right systematic strategy, even the most prepared candidates literally bleed marks right here. But hey, don't worry, that is exactly what we are going to fix today. So here's our roadmap for this session. We'll start off with the core principles, then we'll move into a really interesting pure deconstruction debate. After that, we'll map out the procedural framework, run through an interactive workshop, and finally finish up with a strategy recap to lock it all in.
Okay, Act 1, the core principles. Let's get into it.
Before we dive into the actual numbers and the math, we really have to understand the theoretical architecture that Cambridge demands from you. The syllabus emphatically highlights that top-performing students exhibit this connected, conceptual understanding that is highly transferable. You see, you cannot just learn a concept in a vacuum. You really need to understand the anatomy of the command words examiners are throwing at you. For example, when an examiner uses the word analyze, they want you to break down the facts. But when they shift gear and say evaluate, they are demanding a judgment that's based on those facts. You have to keep those command words in mind as we look at our first major hurdle, matching accruals. Simple rote memorization completely fails here. This concept fundamentally requires you to understand the precise definitions, but even more importantly, the causal relationships. You are essentially aligning the revenues earned with the expenses that were incurred to generate those specific revenues, completely regardless of when the cash actually flows. To really master this, you have to integrate the concept with other areas of the syllabus. You're tracing the economic impact, not just watching the cash change hands. And that brilliantly illustrates our second core pillar, substance over form. This concept basically dictates that the economic reality of a transaction has to take absolute precedence over its legal form. So think about it like this. If a company essentially owns and controls an asset, they need to account for it, even if the strict legal paperwork says they are merely renting it. The academic benchmarks for this require rigorous, logical reasoning. Examiners are actively hunting for candidates who can reference cross-topic connections. If you can link substance over form back to the underlying principles of faithful representation and relevance, bam, you are immediately projecting the analytical depth that unlocks those elusive higher-tier marks. It's all about proving to the examiner that you see the full, unvarnished financial picture.
All right, let's step into Act 2, the deconstruction debate.
To really understand how these concepts and command words work in practice under exam conditions, I want you to imagine we're sitting in a dynamic digital study suite right now. We've got a complex, high-tariff sample question up on the board, and we're watching two top-tier students try to solve it. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Now, Alex is highly technical, right? Alex loves formulas, excels at stating facts, and is pushing hard for a purely factual approach to hit the knowledge and analysis marks, which Cambridge refers to as assessment objectives AO1 and AO2. On the other hand, you have Sam. Sam is a highly creative thinker, pushing for the conceptual approach, really aiming for AO3, evaluation and judgment. Sam is arguing, wait, the command word is evaluate. If we just list the facts, we're going to max out at the middle marking bands. And here's the absolute kicker. Sam is 100% right about that ceiling, but Alex is right about the foundation. You literally cannot evaluate without facts, and facts without evaluation will never score top marks. To win, you must blend both of these problem-solving styles perfectly.
So how do they actually resolve their debate and blend these approaches? Alex and Sam rely on a very specific step-by-step cognitive breakdown. Let's walk through it together because this is gold. Step 1, deconstruct the question. You have to isolate that command word and find the hidden constraints. Step 2, extract the data from the stimulus materials provided. Step 3, select the analytical framework. Ask yourself, is this a matching accruals issue or a substance over form issue? Now, I want you to pay very close attention to the transition to step 4, because this right here is where most students falter. Step 4 is to execute the analysis systematically. Step 5 is to verify those results, basically do a sanity check for reasonableness. And finally, step 6, present the findings using strict professional accounting terminology. By moving methodically through these 6 steps, Alex gets that structural precision he craves, and Sam gets the perfect framework to build a compelling, highly evaluated argument.
Moving right along, let's look at Act 3, roadblocks and the procedural framework. Actually, before we solve the absolute biggest roadblocks students face in these exams, I want you to hit the mental pause button for just a second. Seriously, think about your own study habits right now. When you are writing out a practice essay, are you relying way too much on Alex's factual memorization? Or maybe you're leaning too hard into Sam's unstructured arguments. Often, when students hit a massive wall with time management or they get overwhelmed by complicated data tables, it's simply because these two mindsets aren't integrated. You need them both to click together. Now, if you are finding this breakdown helpful and you want to master these cognitive strategies, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at the handle @acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on all notifications so you never miss a weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategy. Okay, let's get back into the lesson and look at the exact framework that bridges this gap. When you get stuck mid-exam, you do not panic. Instead, you fall back on your training and this standardized procedural sequence. Let's pace through this deliberately. First, you identify the key elements of the problem. Next, you apply the relevant accounting principles. Then you execute the analysis, and you do this with crystal clear working. Move on to verify the results, and finally, present in the appropriate professional format. If you take messy, panicked, overlapping arguments, and you literally force your thoughts through this exact sequence, it instantly organizes the chaos. It transitions a flawed, mediocre answer into a flawless, full-mark response. It's like a safety net for your brain. And right at the execute phase of that sequence, we hit a massive examiner alert. Please read this quote carefully. Students lose marks by not showing working. Even if your final answer is wrong, method marks can save you. We call this the method mark strategy, and I cannot overstate this. It is an absolute necessity. Listen, examiners are not mind readers. If you just scribble down a final, incorrect number, you get a 0. But if you show your systematic processing, if you lay out your data extraction and your application of matching accruals incredibly clearly step by step, the examiner can actually award you method marks for your correct process, even if you made a tiny, silly calculator error right at the very end. Always, always show your work. All right, Act 4, the interactive workshop. Let's get hands-on. I want you to lean in now because we are going to do a quick visual workshop focused on data extraction and source analysis. In a real exam, when the clock is mercilessly ticking down and the question demands deep critical analysis, you need to deploy this comparative analysis framework. Look at the table we've got here. Examiners require you to identify similarities, yes, but they also demand you contrast differences clearly. Now here is where a huge majority of students fail. Connectives and evidence. You must use comparative words like whereas, conversely, or on the other hand, to flag your analysis to the examiner. It proves you're evaluating, not just listing. Plus, every single point must be supported by hard evidence pulled directly from the provided text. Finally, you have to end with a conclusion that actually judges the relative importance of these factors. Let that sink in for a moment. This table right here, this is your absolute cheat sheet for securing top-tier evaluation marks. Let's move to a quick spot the flaw exercise. This is based on the top 3 examiner warnings pulled straight from the principal examiner reports. Warning number 1, confusing cause and effect. Students very often state that an accrual exists, but they totally fail to explain that it's caused by the matching principle, which requires expenses to align with the revenue of that specific period. Warning number 2, forgetting format and presentation. You guys, professional skills are actually part of the assessment. And warning number 3, answers that are not specific to the context. Look, if the question is about a manufacturing business, giving generic textbook definitions about substance over form will not score well. You absolutely must apply the theory to the specific scenario they've provided. To really drive this home, take a look at this visual contrast.
On one side, we have the flawed presentation. You can see why this fails. It's just a massive block of text, totally ignoring standard accounting formats, lacking any specific context to the business, and using overly casual language. An examiner looks at that and immediately caps the grade at a low band. Now, on the other side, we have the approved format. Notice how it utilizes proper headings, correct and highly specific terminology, and features crystal clear annotation that literally guides the examiner's eye right to the method marks. Mastering Cambridge accounting conventions isn't just about making your paper look pretty. It is a strict, non-negotiable requirement for demonstrating your professional competence.
We are in the home stretch. Act 5, the strategy recap.
Returning to our hypothetical study suite for a moment, Alex and Sam have had some major breakthroughs. Alex realized that memorizing formulas just isn't enough without the context to evaluate them, and Sam finally understands that without rigid procedural structure, even the most brilliant arguments just fall apart under time pressure. So as your master coach, I want to synthesize this entire explainer into 3 core, highly actionable pillars. Pillar 1, the 3-step question scan. Before your pen even touches the paper, scan the command word, identify the core concept, and extract the constraints. Pillar 2, the paragraph balance formula. Every single paragraph must blend factual knowledge with conceptual evaluation. State the principle, apply the data, and evaluate the impact. And Pillar 3, the last 5 minutes review checklist. Use those crucial last 5 minutes to verify your formatting, ensure your working is clearly annotated, and double-check that your conclusion actually answers the specific command word that was asked. Now, before we wrap, I want to give you a bit of an insider secret. Under intense exam pressure, abstract concepts can completely evaporate from your mind. It happens to the best of us. So I highly recommend this simple memory hack. Create a mnemonic using the first letters of key terms. For instance, MASOF, matching accruals, substance over form. You could remember it as something silly like make accruals show objective facts. Honestly, whatever phrase works for you, just encode these core principles into a quick mental trigger. When the exam timer starts, you write your mnemonic right at the top of your ref paper. It will instantly anchor you back to the precise definitions and causal relationships we've been discussing today. I want to leave you with a slightly provocative question, just to help you evaluate your own exam readiness. Are you applying this exact systematic framework to every past paper question you practice? Seriously, ask yourself. Or are you just reading the textbook, highlighting a few things, and hoping for the best? Because I promise you, passive reading will not survive the rigor of a Cambridge exam. You need active deconstruction. You need to practice writing with that comparative analysis framework. And you need to brutally grade yourself against those examiner warnings we talked about.
Please, don't let these strategies fade the moment this explainer ends. Set a reminder for yourself right now to apply the MASOF framework to your very next practice paper. Commit to your target grade right now. Drop it in the comments below so we can hold you accountable. And remember, crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent strategy. So hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell for more essential exam hacks and put in the systematic work. You've got this, and we will see you in the next explainer.